Joining us now is the chairman of the Republican Party, Reince Priebus. Welcome, Mr. Chairman.
Good morning, John.
Is Donald Trump going to win?
You know, I think he is going to win, and I think he's going to win because I think people in this country have had enough, and he's the change agent. When it comes down to risk in this country, Hillary's been tested, and she's failed. She is the risky candidate. You look at Russia, a uranium deal, giving them control of 20% of the world's uranium, her pocketing hundreds of thousands of dollars on speeches, Russian reset, Libya. You look at Iraq and the mess that she left there. I mean, what I'm saying is she was tried and tested. She failed. She's too risky for this country. So that's why she's going to lose.
The RNC is 100% behind Donald Trump.
Well, she's the nominee of our party. Of course we're behind Donald Trump. I mean, this is ridiculous. As if we wouldn't be behind the nominee of the party. Of course we are.
Do you think the election's in danger of being stolen?
No, but I don't. But what I think the media is missing here is that to ask a candidate 3 weeks before the election if they lose, are they going to concede, asking for a concession speech. No one does that. And I think if it's a close election, look, if you lose by 200 votes in Florida, are you going to concede on election night if you're at 260 electoral votes?
But that's not what he's saying. He's not saying if it's a squeaker. He's saying it's being stolen at this moment. The only way I'll lose is if it's stolen. That's really different.
No, wait a minute. That's not quite what he's saying. What he's saying is he wants to reserve all options, and if there is grounds for a recount, I will exercise my options. Look, I know where his head's at. He is not willing to not concede if he loses and there's no fraud.
But his mouth is in a different place than where you think his head is. He said if he loses Pennsylvania, a state Republicans haven't won since '88, it will only be because the state was stolen from him.
I don't think that's where he's at. That's not where I'm at. I think that if losing by 100 votes is one thing. Losing by 100,000 is a different thing. I think we can be reasonable on this issue.
Here's why I ask. It's not just the media. South Carolina Governor Nikki Haley says, quote, this election is not rigged, and it's irresponsible to say that it is. So is Nikki Haley right, or is Donald Trump right?
I think there are two people saying two different things. I think if you're Donald Trump and you see the barrage and the media implosion on every single thing this guy does, no matter what it is. He eats cornflakes in the morning, and CNN or another cable show, MSNBC, is talking about it 24 hours a day. If you look at Hillary Clinton, what she's got away with on this email scandal, when you have General Cartwright going to potentially prison for doing 1/10 of her. Listen, but I'm trying to put you in the mind of a person who's running for president and sees this unbelievable world around him, and then you do hear about fraud at the ballot box, and you say, you know what? I'm going to reserve all options. That's what he's saying.
But reserving options is different than saying it's going to be stolen.
That's how I say it.
I understand. But that's the problem is the difference between what you say and what he says.
I know where he's at on this, and where he's at is exactly as I'm explaining to you.
Would you advise him, as the Republican Party chair, to say, you know, make this distinction clear? Because otherwise what you're going to do is incite your followers to think that this election's being stolen from them, and that's dangerous, just as a moral point.
By the way, and he did do that. He did that.
He's still
did that
talking
the
about
next
election
day
being
and the
stolen.
week after.
No, I don't mean his response to the debate. I mean just in general. When he goes out and says the election's rigged, he said it last night.
Listen, I think he's trying to also tell his folks to watch out for this fraud that might occur. But look, it's not, I'm telling you, we know this is not millions of people, but what we're talking about are things like, if you look at the Milwaukee police report that came out about 6 years ago. The Milwaukee Police Department put out a 70-page report on election fraud in Milwaukee. This wasn't the Republican putting out, but I'm telling you is that this is real. So let's not go down this road where we're acting like this is some figment of people's imagination.
But I think the Milwaukee police report makes just precisely the point. They found fraud, but not enough to steal the election. It wasn't even close.
Right. But if you lose by 100 votes, it might be.
Right, but that's not. But anyway, let's move on, Mr. Chairman, because I want to ask you about last time you were here. You said Republicans who didn't support Donald Trump, who wanted to run for president in the future, might face some sanctions, some punishment from the party. Is that still the case?
Look, I think these are things that we're going to look at after the election, but we expect to win. And I think that, you know, unifying the party is something that's always the job of a chairman of a party and all the people that are involved in our party, and that's what we expect to do. And so we're going to leave that for another time.
But they're not under, they shouldn't worry about
their... The point is, I think, given the choice between someone who's been tried and tested and failed, and someone that can't be trusted like Hillary Clinton, and someone that wants to change up the system, I think all Republicans should support the nominee of our party.
What if they don't? How should Republicans think about somebody like Paul Ryan? Is Paul Ryan a good Republican?
Of course he's a great Republican. He's one of the brightest stars in our party, and he's a great friend, smart, one of the most pure-hearted people I've ever known in politics. So yes, he's a great Republican. I think all of the, when you have two parties, this isn't Italy. We don't have 12 different parties where everyone can fit neatly into a box. And so you have to understand that. Our job is to bring as many people into the room as possible and make the case. And so that's what we're doing every day.
I want to ask you about bringing people into the room. That was the point of the autopsy that you had written after the 2012 election. And it said that look at the 2012 race, it said, quote, the Republican Party needs to stop talking to itself. We have become expert in how to provide ideological and reinforcement to like-minded people. A lot of people would say that it describes exactly the kind of race Donald Trump is running. Totally opposite of what was argued the Republican Party should do in that autopsy. What do you say to that?
I'd say, well, then you're not giving him any credit for going into Cleveland and Detroit countless times, talking about school choice, meeting with black and Hispanic pastors, talking about the fact that the Democrats take advantage of these communities every 4 years, tell them what they want to hear, don't follow up with SBA loans for small business owners who happen to be black or Hispanics. They don't follow up on education reform. There's no follow up on any of these promises. And so if you look at what the Republican Party's done as well, we put our money where our mouth is. I mean, we've put money in Hispanic and black and Asian engagement for 4 straight years like no party in modern history has ever done. But listen, let me tell you something about the Growth and Opportunity Report. The Growth and Opportunity Report isn't just a diagnosis of the Republican National Committee. The Growth and Opportunity Report is a message to the entire party as a whole, and I stand behind it 100%.
Even though Donald Trump's number with African Americans, Latinos, and women are so bad.
It doesn't, listen, it's not because of the effort that has not been put in. I mean, first of all, I contend that he's going to do better in black communities than we have done 4 and 8 years ago. But what this prescription is a prescription for the long term, not the short term, and being active 24/7 in black and Hispanic communities, talking about the issues that matter in those communities is what our party's all about. We are the party of Lincoln. We are the party of equality, freedom, and opportunity, and that's what we'll always be.
All right, Chairman Reince Priebus, thanks.
You bet.